All right. I have a microphone, so you have to listen to me. Also, you're in my office, and I'm paying for your drinks. So, welcome. Thank you all for coming. Every single time we do an event, it rains. That's just a fact. So thank you all for coming out if it is still raining. I'm feeling super spicy today. So we'll see how this all goes. But I think we just filmed Drink with James earlier today, and Tim was like, I have to cut half of that out. Because you're just like ranting about chicken sandwiches. So this is a little different. We haven't ever really done this before, but I was sick of talking. And so we wanted to bring influencers kind of that represented a kind of wide array of different followings and interests, and take like 20 of the most popular Drink with James questions and turn it over to them. So we're going to try and do about 45 minutes of that, right, Tim? Yes. And then 15 minutes of questions at the end? Great. Who's here for the first time? Raise your hand. Welcome. And some faces I've seen are here all the time, so thank you guys for coming back. Obviously, you guys know where the bar is. Hard to miss it. We generally will have like some bottles floating around during the talks because you might start shaking 45 minutes into it. But you can also quietly get up and go get a drink. That's not rude, especially in this house. So, is there any other announcements I need to make? Anything? That's it? Okay. Well, let's give a round of applause to our panelists. Yeah. And I'm going to have them introduce themselves, and we'll start with Caitlyn.
Hi, guys. Thanks for coming. My name's Caitlyn. I have a style blog called How Do You Wear That? And I've been doing this for like 4.5 years, and I do it full time. Anything else?
How many followers do you have?
Oh, I have 154,000.
Okay. That's great.
Thank you. It's taken a while, but I'm getting there.
All right, my name is Vic Styles. I tell people that I'm a freelance life liver for my job, for my career. Basically means I get paid to live my life. I do this full time. I've been doing this for roughly the same amount of time, like 4 years, and I have 45.3 thousand followers.
And you're mostly like, you do a lot of skincare, right?
Yeah, lots of skincare, wellness, some fashion.
There you go.
Hey guys, representing the men up here. My name is Drew Jessup. I'm from Maine. And Drew Jessup is also my Instagram handle. I do not have a blog. I'm mostly just on Instagram. I have just about 23,000 followers, mostly in the menswear lifestyle space. And I've been doing this for just about 4 years, full time. I also model on the side. Yeah.
Yeah, professionally handsome. That's been nice. I always I wish, I'm like, if I was just like twice as good looking, I wouldn't have to really do quite as much work. So we're going to dive into that. What is life like as a very good looking person? I'm interested. Okay. Let's start here by talking about community. I think one thing to build a following, another to kind of build a community and have that following feel like they're kind of part of something larger. I think this is a question for everyone because you can have 5,000 followers and those 5,000 followers can feel like they're a part of a community. So I guess a two-part answer was one, do you feel like you have that? And do you think your followers would say that they feel like they're a part of a community? And if so, what have you done to kind of foster that, and what do you continue to do to foster that?
Should I start?
Go for it.
Okay. I think I have built a community, and I think it really comes from just listening to them. Like, they pretty much tell you what they want to see, and you just kind of have to let them guide you in a way, while obviously still kind of being authentic to yourself or true to yourself, whatever. But just listening to what they actually want to see and answering and being reliable and consistent.
are you actually asking? Like, are you doing the like, hey guys, what do you want to see? Or are you just kind of like seeing the DMs and the comments and kind of letting that guide you?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I think for me, it's mostly just seeing the comments and the DMs. More so the comments, because people kind of just ask stuff all the time about, where is this from, or how do you wear this, or can you do a blog post on this, but also kind of surveying the audience. What do you like to see? What do you not like that I do? What would you see more? What would you like to see more of, and stuff like that. So I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, and Vic and Drew, your followings are obviously a little smaller, but like, how do you view community? And yeah, how are you feeling about it? Like, do you think that audience still feels like they're part of that?
I do.
Go for it.
I think that community is the thing that I'm doing this for, right? Like, I think it started for me, what is my purpose in life? Aside from, being Instagram famous and getting you guys to buy expensive skincare, like, what is at the core, what is my purpose? And at the core, my purpose is to connect with Black women and to inspire them, all women, but specifically women of color, because it's such a marginalized community. So for me, community is everything. I answer every DM. I respond to every single comment, because every follow that I get matters. That's how I get brand deals, and I want people to feel like they're appreciated, that I give gratitude for the energy and the time that you spend with me, because you could be following anybody, but you chose to be here with me. And the way that I sort of cultivate that is by remaining authentic. I take my audience and my followers through my life's journey, whether that's me being homeless, sleeping on somebody's couch, whether that's me getting my first apartment in Brooklyn 2 months ago. They really feel like they're a part of my life. And I try to lead by example. Like, whatever I have, you guys can have also. There's nothing special inside of me that you can't cultivate yourself, and I think that's important.
Yeah, to touch on a few things. I think authenticity and vulnerability are a lot of buzzwords these days, but I think there's a lot of truth to them. And I know that for me, I hit a point 4 years ago where I said if I was going to do this, I needed to share every ebb and flow of my life. And when I sense the most community from my platform is when I have something to say. And I always share those things. And I think one of the difficult things is that you don't always have something to say. And I don't just want to try and say things to say things. And I can feel where there's a disconnect between the people that do follow me because of that reason. So I think a lot of times it's just sharing the human experience with people, while also being on this side and showing what you've built to get you to the place that you are, that a lot of people seek. So I think it's just relatability and having someone to connect to that builds community, and people build and create relationships around that.
And how do you, Drew specifically, I guess for all of you, living in New York, right? Like, I think one thing that we've talked about is, like, as you get more successful, it becomes harder to be relatable, right? Like, and, when you come home and there's boxes sitting outside your door of, like, huge amounts of free shit, like, that's not, I don't know if you guys know this, but, like, that's not most people's lives. Us normals don't just, like, come home to random shit that people have sent them. I get, like, a bottle of whiskey every once in a while from an influencer, but how do you balance that, like, your life changing and becoming unrelatable?
Yeah, just to jump in. I think that's actually exactly what I'm saying, though, is that the farther you get into this space and the more free shit that you get and the more free trips that you get, you do become more unrelatable to the normies, as you say it. But I think that's why it's important that not to shy away from the fact that everyone has to look themselves in the mirror every morning, and that never changes. And you can let yourself sort of slip down the line of, like, getting free shit and thinking that makes you something else. But at the end of the day, and I'm sure that you guys can attest to this, that it really doesn't bring much. It's a pretty fleeting and hollow feeling. And you have to see it for what it is, and at the same point, like you have to have friends and you have to have all of the things that we need as humans, so do you guys need. So that's the thing that we share, and that's where the community comes from.
I feel like we're like 10 minutes in. We've gotten like we're like going hard. We got really deep here. Okay, yeah. Let's move away from like existentially how we value ourselves as human, and talk about making money. Right? That's something everyone wants to do more of. So I think there is always a question of like how do you start making money in this space? So I'd love to, I think, hear from y'all when you started charging and when you kind of made that jump to trying to make money off of this. Vic, maybe start with you.
Yeah, I think it's such a weird question to answer now because brands are literally shelling out millions of dollars now. But 5 years ago, it wasn't the same in this space. So it's kind of like a tricky question to answer. My first brand deal ever was like some unheard of jewelry brand that paid me like $50 to post, and I thought that it was the coolest thing in the world. And even now, I mean, using platforms like Fohr, I pitch myself. I have a manager who pitches for me also, which is very important. But I think to start making money for me, it kind of started with the brands that I work with and that I use organically. You know what I mean? Like, what face wash am I actually using? What toothpaste am I actually using? Let me reach out to those people because it's not a gimmick. It's not me trying to sell something. These are things that I actually stand behind. And then the other thing with making money is, one, it's dope that we get to do this, but there's so much money to be made if you're just, like you said, authentic and you're just yourself. And I really feel like we put so much emphasis on how much money, but the fact of the matter is, if you're making $1,200 for one Instagram post, for some people that sounds like a lot of money. For other people, that doesn't sound like much money. But when you calculate the time that it takes to photograph it, edit it, and submit it, that's 2 hours. $1,200 for 2 hours of your time, that's more than most people in this country will ever make,
Yeah. And I think, way we sometimes describe it to brands, if they're like, oh my gosh, like, someone's got 500,000 followers, we're going to pay them $5,000 or something for an Instagram. It's like, I remember there was a famous graphic designer that was like, yeah, I could make your logo in 15 minutes. I'll charge you, $20,000 for that. You're not paying for my 20 minutes. You're paying for the last 30 years of my life. Mm-hmm. That allows me to do this really quickly. And so once you start, withdrawing from that bank and making money off the following, it can seem to people and to brands really easy, like, oh my gosh, you just wake up and like take a photo of yourself and make money. But as you guys all know, obviously building a following is really, really difficult and takes many, many years. So yeah, I think it is a weird thing and a strange kind of thing to talk about sometimes. I mean, Drew, interested for you, again, a little smaller following, and potentially brands aren't expecting to pay when they reach out, especially menswear space is not as established as like the women's side of fashion and style. Do you get a lot of people reaching out just wanting to gift you, and are you trying to turn those gifting relationships into paid ones? And this is a 3-part question. And if so, like how do you do that, and is it working? That's actually a 4-part question.
Yeah, so I do have management that helps me with anything contractual. I do have, I'm trying to answer them all. I do have people that reach out on direct message, and they'll be like, yo, we want to send you this thing. Are you down to receive it? Are you down to give some love? And I always answer those.
Is that really how they conduct business? Are you down to give some love?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty casual. I know, but what's interesting is that I think that being a guy in the space is a bit of a niche, and anything that hits my my inbox, which could either go directly to my personal email, which is like if you hit email on Instagram, or it could go to my management's email, which is in my bio, is a paid gig. And for the rate that I require for an Instagram post at this point of like working it and seeing what is appropriate, it's really actually not that difficult to justify the price, I would say. So I don't have that difficult of a time getting paid for things.
But if they are if they're like, oh, I don't have budget, I just am going to give you this thing. Are you taking that and then trying to build that eventually into a relationship where they're paying you, or are you just like, I don't do things that aren't paid?
It kind of depends. If it's a brand that I'm obsessed with and they're undervaluing my rate, I will definitely consider doing it to build a relationship. If it's someone that I don't know and I'm not even sure what the quality of their product is, and I'll say like, I'll give it a review on Instagram story, and could be great, could be shit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's up to you. If you want to send it, and I'll see what's up with it. But typically, they meet the rate that I require.
There we go. Okay, good to be you. See, this is the good-looking thing, I think. People are like, I'll pay you anything. Just like, look at me. Caitlyn, for you, obviously, at your level, I think people reaching out are expecting to pay. I mean, some are crazy, they're not, I'm sure. But I want to talk to you about like over delivery, and if you're being contracted for something, what are your feelings on like what you're delivering? Are you just giving them what they paid for, or are you trying to do more?
I always try to over deliver. I think that helps build the relationship. I'm not saying to go and do like 1 million extra Instagrams,
You
but
can. That's fine. It's for us.
because you obviously know your worth, but I think it's super important to give extra love and give some organic postings and show that you actually like the product and you're using it in your everyday life. So to get like technical, if someone's like, oh, do you want Instagram and want Instagram stories, I think it's wise to maybe do like 4 or 5 Instagram stories, and then maybe like in a month or so do a non-dedicated Instagram, tag the product and then 2 other things that you're wearing, to really kind of build a long-term relationship, because I think that is the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I can tell you from our side, if we have 50 people on a campaign, our reporting tool actually has a way to rank, over delivery, like who did the most to who did the least, and that is definitely something we're looking at. And it's tough to justify working with someone again if they've just done what was contracted for them. And this is like, if y'all know Adalia, who's a manager, she works with Crissell, a bunch of huge influencers, but she is always pushing her talent that is charging, Crissell doesn't get out of bed for like less than $100,000 to do extra and to make sure that like no matter what, they are giving organic and they're over delivering on those things. And like brands are definitely paying attention. And I think you're smart to say like that like 2 months after it, doing an organic thing and tagging them is also really nice. We often tell the clients that like we think the space is too transactional on both sides, right? Brands are coming in, working with y'all, and then never talking to you again, not gifting you when something new comes out, so they're making it hard for you to even promote them. But on the flip side, influencers are, getting paid by a brand and then not giving them any love. I mean, we had a client who recently was, and I think it's interesting for you guys to hear this side of it, but like this client was like, we gave this influencer a coffee machine and we paid them to use it, paid them a good amount of money, and then a week later, they were just in their kitchen, just doing whatever they're doing in their kitchen, and they saw a competitor's coffee machine had like replaced theirs. And they didn't tag them or anything, but they were just like, what the fuck? Like, I just gave you over $10,000 to do this whole big thing, and you told the audience that like you just love this coffee machine, it's the greatest coffee machine ever, and a week later it's been replaced. And like, not only is that something the brand notices, but like that's a story they are telling about, and like when they tell that story, they're using the name with us. I'm obviously not going to do that because I haven't had enough to drink yet, but like people notice it, and I think like it's important to know that brands are like, they have a scorecard, and like over delivery is just like one of the really easy ways to make yourself stand out. So kudos to you. I'm like so old, I gotta like switch between being able to see far and like flipping this up, so excuse me. 35's it is what it is. So, okay, Where are we going? Okay, so you guys are all full-time on this? Congratulations. Who in the audience is not full-time? Raise a hand. Okay, good amount of you. So, Vic, you want to talk about your decision to do that? I mean, you're like freelancing on life, which is great.
So dope.
Did you have a full-time job ever?
Never. I mean, let me not
This
say
is
never.
full-time.
Let me not say never. So I dropped out of college and moved to LA to be a wardrobe stylist. And as soon as I got there, I did that like pretty rapidly. Got to work with some amazing people, and so I've never had a 9-to-5. I've always been freelance. And so the switch from being freelance wardrobe stylist to freelance influencer wasn't that difficult for me. You know, I'm used to chasing the checks. I'm used to net 60, net 90. I'm used to having to create my own schedule and stick to that. So it wasn't that difficult as it would be for someone who's used to the stability of having a 9-to-5.
Yeah. What about you, Caitlyn? Did you have like the full-time 9-to-5?
I did.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess, yes and no. I worked full-time in a marketing agency, but I had the ability to work from home.
Okay.
So when I was working from home, I was like working on the blog on the side. But
This
yeah.
is why I don't believe in remote work, by the way. They were like, "What? Working from home? Everyone's doing it." It's like, no, absolutely not.
As long as you get your stuff done,
Right, sure.
I mean, it could work. But yeah, so I was working full time for like a year and a half, and then I quit my job to do the blog full time.
Was that a difficult decision, or were you like, "Hey, I think I can already make as much money doing this as I can in my full time"?
It was it was definitely a scary decision. It was extremely daunting, but I was preparing for it. Like, I was making sure I was getting consistent work every month. I was making sure I had jobs in the pipeline, so when I eventually quit, like, I knew I had income coming in, God forbid something were to happen. So I feel like I was more conservative in that sense, where I was very prepared and weary. So because of that, it kind of made it easy.
Now, Vic was doing the freelance thing, but it's a good point, like being used to like making invoices and following up on them and paying for your own health care. Like, these are not small things, and they're not things that like you just learn.
Taxes.
I'm not, you'd be amazed how many influencers just never send us an invoice. I mean, we can't pay you if you don't invoice us.
Yeah.
And like, nobody teaches you this stuff. So that stuff, was any of that like a learning curve? Is it hard to kind of get into that groove?
Yeah, for sure. I think it did help because I have a business coach, Adalia, who she's been in the industry for a while, and she kind of guided me through the whole thing. Like, she was with me when I had my full-time job, so we would talk every week, like, okay, like, is it time to quit? Is it time to quit? And I was like hanging on by a thread, and she kept saying, no, like, stick with it. And then eventually when I did, she just helped keep me accountable. So that stuff didn't really fall through the cracks, but also it did. I'm going to be honest, it did. It's hard. It's hard because you're doing all of the things that you would have other people do.
And all of you have managers, right?
I don't.
You don't.
I mean,
Okay.
Adalia is my business coach
Okay.
or business manager, but I'm not repped by anyone.
We're going to talk about that now. So, Drew, you, I assume, had like model management and then moved into this, or how did that work? Do you just like, I assume at like 15, someone just comes up, they're like, oh, cool. Like, you don't have to worry about anything. Here you go.
No, God, I'm now trying to reflect. I actually got signed. No, so I was doing some modeling for one when I first got here, and at that point I had a small following, and was like, and I got linked up with like GQ when I first got here, and so they were sending me some gigs and like introducing me to the menswear space, and then I had a weird relationship, like got connected to a guy at Full Screen Agency in Los Angeles, and they were pretty much like, yo, if you're ever in LA, like come for a meeting. And I'd never been to LA, and I was like, yo, booked a flight for next week. Happened to be there. And I just happened to like get in the room and convince this guy that I had a lot of ambition and needed some help and direction. And I didn't see myself as a model sort of like sailing off into the sunset. And so they signed me for a year contract, and then my manager, who was the reason I was there, who was the guy that I met with, ended up leaving to do his own boutique influencer management. So I've been with them now, so independently 2 years, but with this manager for 3 years.
And for you, like, why do that? Why give away 20% of your money?
Yeah, I think it kind of reflects like what you're not good at. First off, I don't have a lot of experience in business. I don't have a lot of experience in the language of a contract and what things mean. And I don't like to be the bad guy. And I think that works in two ways. Not only am I not good at standing up for myself in terms of like justifying prices, but I'm not good at like the whole negotiation process, or like someone is much better at pitching me than I am at pitching myself. So my management takes 20%, but at the same time, they make me more than the 20% that I would lose, and I don't have to deal with any of the bullshit. I get to just create and enjoy.
Vic, for you, is it similar? Like,
Yeah, he said everything.
boom, done.
Yeah.
So Caitlyn, why don't you do it?
I feel like I'm pretty comfortable with the negotiation.
You're happy being an asshole, basically.
I mean,
it's okay.
very
I am.
kind. I respectfully decline, and I over-deliver. So, you know, I give some, like,
Yeah, you're good to go.
cushion. But no, I feel like I'm comfortable kind of negotiating terms and all that, but I'm only comfortable with that because I have someone behind me that is or was a manager. So every week we kind of go through my jobs and we navigate it together. So I feel like justified, like, no, this is the right thing, and I'm okay to say that to the brand.
Yeah.
I think I'm a lot softer as opposed to like a manager or an agent. And I kind of like that. And I really like the connection I have with the brand, because I feel like, I mean, to each their own, you know. Eventually, I think everyone's probably going to need a manager once you grow. But right now, I'm really happy with where I'm at, and I feel comfortable. It's very time consuming, but I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's important. It's like, you know, seems like for, you know, Drew and Vic, like, y'all are like, well, I'm not that good at it, and I don't have any interest in being good at it.
Yeah.
And I think if that's the case, if you're like, not only do I not feel good at this, but I don't want to be good at it, then giving 20% of that away is like totally makes sense. I think if you're like, I'm not good at it, but I think I could be, or I want to learn, then go, you know, doing something like you
Right.
are, where like you have someone coaching you and helping you out, and someone you can, you know, check in with and say like, hey, did I answer this email right?
Yeah.
What should I do here?
Right,
They're
right.
pushing back on this. Should I push back on them? Can be helpful, because this stuff isn't rocket science. You know, it's not that hard to do. It is
Right.
time consuming. You do have to be a certain personality, but it can be learned. And you know, as your following grows, I mean, if you're on your way to, let's say you go to 1 million, you know, we generally like, okay, if you're 1 million followers, you're probably making close to $1 million a year. So you give 200,000 of that away to your manager, you know, and for, you know, answering emails and looking over contracts, and maybe that's worth it to you, maybe it's not. Some bigger influencers have built in-house teams. You can get someone for less than 200 grand to do that kind of work. Some managers are amazing and also have, you know, relationships that you don't have, and they're bringing stuff inbound. And I think as you grow, that's something to look at your management and, like, you know, you have an Excel sheet and say, how much of my work came from inbound and they negotiated versus how much did they bring to me? Because if it's like 90% inbound, you know, you do have to say, like, am I just giving this money away? And like a lot of it for not a huge amount of work. I mean, do you guys think about that? Like, do you feel like your management is, I don't know if they're in the room, sorry, you can't talk about it, but
Right.
are they adding, Vic, are they adding value and bringing you deals, or are they right now just kind of like helping?
No, we're on the verge of a breakup.
Oh, okay. This is like, what are the kids, this is like a tea? What is this? Are we going to like
We're on the
spill
verge
the
of a
tea?
breakup.
What do the kids say? I don't know.
But no, exactly, because of exactly what you said. Like, it's great to not have to worry about the logistical things. Like, it's great to just have to create and not have to worry about chasing checks and negotiating. But at the same time, as I grow, and as I talk to other influencers in this space, I realize, oh, your manager's doing this. It's kind of like when you're in a relationship and you're like, your boyfriend does this? What? Mine doesn't do that. You know what I mean? And like, you have the talk with him, like, okay, look, if you don't start doing these things, I'm gonna be out.
Yeah.
So I think we're like at that, we're like right there right now, because I'm realizing now what other people are getting from their management, and I'm not getting that, and I know that I should be.
And Drew, you feeling taken care of?
Yeah.
Drew's good.
I love my team, but I think the thing that gets lost is you talk a lot about contracts, and you talk a lot about 20% and the gigs that you're being paid for, that then you're giving money to. But the way that I think about it is that, like, I'm a dreamer and my ambition knows no walls, and the amount of things that I talk to my management about in terms of what I'm interested in, what my trajectory or what I think it should be, where my skill sets are, like what new idea am I brewing, they're not getting paid for any of that shit. And they answer every email, we have every chat, we talk about the strategy behind everything, and they're still only getting paid when I get paid. Mm-hmm. So that's where, for me, like, I love to have that team, I love to have that support, I love to, like, that I can dream something and someone's like, oh, wow, well, I live in LA, and like, here's the connections that I have. Like, I've recently been signed by an agency in Hollywood for acting, which would never have come if I wasn't, like, showed that interest. So I think it works both ways. Yeah, but
that's a great point. Okay, I want to talk about talking about things outside your niche. So maybe Vic, you're a good place to start, right? Like, skincare was is a focus of yours. How, as you started to like gain traction there, and you start to think like, oh, I want to post about other things, fashion, whatever it might be, travel. Do has that been effective? Like, do you feel like you can get out of like, okay, you followed me for skincare, but now I'm going to talk to you about, you were just at a farm today, which is
literally just got back.
Yeah, she was, yeah. So yeah, have you been able to like jump outside of that niche?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started as a fashion blogger because I was a wardrobe stylist, and as I sort of cultivated this audience, I realized, like Drew was saying, I wanted to share my human experience. I don't just wash my face every day. Like, I eat food and I get dressed and I go places and I do things. And so I'm very open about sharing my entire life experience. And oftentimes, about once a month, I'll do like one of those question things you can ask in your stories. And I'm like, why do you guys follow me? And the answers are all over the place. For your hair, for your fashion, for wellness, because you talk about sexual assault. Like, it's everything. There isn't just one thing. And I love stories for that. Like, my feed is very curated, very wellness and skincare, but my stories are where you can really experience my day-to-day life. And so I don't feel boxed into a niche.
Do Drew or Caitlyn, do either of you feel boxed in at all, or you also feel pretty flexible?
Yeah, I feel pretty flexible. And I feel like that people start following you for your niche, and then eventually they kind of want to know like everything else. So that leaves you room, like especially in your stories, to kind of show all aspects of your life if you want to share that.
I think similarly, I would just say that I'm aware of not speaking on things I'm not fully educated on, and I go out of my way not to do that. Yeah. So if I have an opinion on something, like, I feel the freedom to say it, but if I think, I don't know, maybe have a preconceived notion about something, I'm not going to comment on it unless I know it's factual.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's funny, I'm a cyclist, and in the like cycling Instagram community, there's this hashtag no bikes, no likes. And like, it is definitely a thing of like, if you're not posting about cycling, they just do not give a shit, And like, my following is like partially like cycling, and like now mostly influencers, I think, who think following me is gonna like get them some money or something. They're not engaging, that's how I can tell you. But like I've seen the other side where it's like it can be frustrating to feel like I've got this audience that's like kind of fractured, and like some people are here for this stuff and some are here for this.
Yeah.
And with the algorithm being so important and getting that engagement being so important, if everyone's not like super into, especially your in-feed posts, they can do quite poorly. And I think what scares people is like they'll step out of their niche and post something else and it doesn't do nearly as well, right? Like if it's, I'm doing skincare, and so I do a lot of like waist up or like, chest up photos of my face, and then I'm posting a landscape photo, and people just, even if it's not that they're not like into it actively, they get used to seeing a certain type of content from you, and when something is different, their brain doesn't say like, oh, that's Drew's post or that's Vic's post, and so they just skip it. So I think it can be hard to get out of that niche and to say like, okay, I'm gonna like do this whole new type of thing, because I think we do hear a good amount of people who are like, yeah, I wanted to get into, interiors, but all the interior stuff I post, people don't connect with it. They just want selfies. Which can be tough, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, do you ever feel, if not boxed in by your niche, do you feel boxed in by like engagement and like what you think is going to quote unquote do well?
Absolutely. Like I know that if I post a picture of food, no one is gonna like it. Like you just know, and sometimes I think as a creator, you take that risk. You're like, I just want to get this out there creatively, and other times you're like, let me just save this for myself.
Yeah.
I think I agree with that, but I also feel like you have to like massage your audience in a sense, and like kind of like
Okay, tell us more.
draw. Like, if you want to start posting about food, post about it, but post about it consistently, then eventually they'll maybe catch on. That's like the hopes.
Yeah, I think Eva Chen would say like she always talked about training, that audiences were
Yeah,
trainable, and that
right.
you could retrain them to get used to seeing something else from you, but you have to go through that awkward, like it's like if you're growing bangs out, like that awkward part where like they don't totally know.
Yeah.
But usually like worth giving it a couple months of consistency to see if it connects. Also, it's your like Instagram, do whatever the fuck you want. Like, who cares? Likes are going away soon. It's going to be a party. We can just post 10 times a day again. There's going to be no laws or rules. Quick thing, are you guys here for removing likes or not? I'm obviously here for it because my engagement's terrible, but
I am here for it.
You're here for it.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Here for it.
I don't know.
You? Okay.
I really don't know. I mean, I think I'm here for it, but
You're all liars.
No, so for me, it doesn't really have anything to do with my career and my specific page, but I was talking to my niece who's 11, and her and her friend, I was listening to her and her friend speak, and they were talking about some girl in their middle school, and they were like, yeah, she's not that popular. She only has like 4,000 followers. And I'm like, she's 11. Like,
wow.
what does that mean? But like, just knowing that the pressure that you face as like a middle schooler or a high schooler, and then that's amplified by how many likes you have, I'm like, do away with it, because we're a very small population.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like the majority of people, this is actually affecting their real self-esteem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Facebook cares about that so
Right.
much.
No.
But like, we, having done this for now 7 years, people used to post like 100 times a month, and now like the average is less than 30. And so, if you guys aren't posting, they can't sell advertisements. Like they can't even place their own ads in the feed because there's just not enough impressions. So they need people posting more shit. And I think a good way to get people to post more is to make it so you can't see likes. I also think that there maybe is that brand's engagement is so bad that there's some pressure from their brand partners to say, hey, we have 4 million followers and we maybe bought 1 million a year ago, and we would like it if people couldn't see that we were getting 1,100 likes and have 4 million followers.
I think at the same time, I recently started a podcast with my buddy Isaac Likes, who I know you're familiar with, and we've been having these conversations a lot about like mental health and social media's involvement in that, and if there's any connection between people doing this professionally, people doing it purely out of usership, it's the conversation around likes. It's never typically around followings. It's like, how many likes does my photo get? Which I think is the biggest factor into the mental health aspect of social media. So I think, and then you look at it professionally, and it's like, I still have to submit my analytics at the end of the day. That's information that's still accessible to myself if you can see it or not. So I'm not worried about it from a professional standpoint. If you've bought a lot of followers and then you submit your analytics and they're shit anyway, I don't think the brand's gonna hire you. If you're legitimate, they will. And if this also helps the grand scheme of things and puts the, general population in a better place mentally, I just think it could be at least a great step to try out.
I'll say I like, they turned it on for me for a while, the hidden likes. So yeah, you have a thing where you can see how many likes you have on a photo and who liked it. And also Fohr can still access that. So like for our brand partners, we will still see how many likes you're getting on your photos. So it's just that, you can't see it in the feed. So yeah, it's not really changing. It'll be interesting to see if there's less engagement if people don't feel like those likes are public. But it's still gonna drive the algorithm, and it's still gonna be a big part of the platform. It's just not, like when they turn it on, it just says like, instead of, how it says like a couple accounts and 500 other people, it just says the couple accounts. So to say like, Tim Jeffries, James Nord, and others liked this photo. So I guess the only embarrassing thing if it's just like James Nord liked this photo. It's just one. There's no others. You just have to get to 3 likes, and then you're like, you're clear, you're good. So like you be posting food every day. Okay. I want to talk about stories. You guys have talked a good amount about stories. So I think that like, I always talk about like the stories that look like a perforated edge. Like, like when I go to someone, there's like, oh, there's like 50 here. That's like an instant, just like, whoop, I'm gonna skip right on past that. Do you guys have like best practices for yourself that you're like, okay, this is kind of how many I'm thinking of doing? Do you talk to camera versus don't talk to camera? What are just a couple things that you feel like are working for you? I saw you talking to camera today. It's Wellness
James
Wednesday.
Skipping me for sure. No, I have no approach to it besides like whatever I have in the moment. I'll talk to the camera. I'll take a random ass photo in Soho and post it. All of my stuff, it's still curated to a certain degree. Like I always save it and put it in Visco, and just because I like aesthetic and I like creating
you're
something.
like you'll post. You don't. You're
no,
just, if you want to
I'm
post 20 that day,
ruthless.
you'll post 20.
Yeah, I'm ruthless, man. I'll post whatever I want to post. As many posts. Even today, it's probably annoying, but there's something about the fluidity of Instagram stories that I love in terms of like as a creator. And so I look at those as like, I'm going to do it for me. I'm going to post what I want. And if one person gets something from that, like groovy.
Have you guys ever had anyone from your audience be like, hey, I don't like when you do this on stories, or like, it's too much, just calm the fuck down? No, everyone loves you guys? God, it must be like, I swear, there's not nearly enough hate. I thought we were gonna get some like good drama or something.
There has been, like, I feel like when you start getting to the core of who people are, I think that there can be drama. And people hate influencers. Like, let's be real about it. People really just dislike this in general. But there was one time, a couple weeks ago, I posed the question, if you could do anything with your life and you didn't have to worry about money or like being successful, it was like guaranteed you would be successful, what would you do? And people were answering like, I would smoke weed all day and I would just like read a book. And so I went on a rant and I was like, yo, I need you guys to think outside of the box. Like, really, what would you do? And that, like, I got so much hate mail for that, and I never gotten attacked.
Like, don't hate on my weed smoking.
Yeah.
Book
Yeah.
What was the hate?
Like, who are you? Someone said, just because one of the answers was I would fix my face and get a perfect body. Basically, like I would get plastic surgery, and I, in my rant, I commented on that, and someone responded, well, just because you were born pretty and privileged doesn't mean that you can judge someone who wants to fix their face. And that just sparked a whole, just a whole another thing. And it's just crazy the things that I've heard my influencer peers say that people have said to them. People can say really hateful things behind a screen.
Yeah. I know my friend Taylor, who's a reporter at The Atlantic, it's unbelievable the amount of shit they get, especially on Twitter, which is just like, is crazy. People are like, I'm going to sever your head and use it as a fruit bowl, It's like, it is like dark on Twitter. I would stay off of it in general if you're not on there. I think I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll kick it to questions, and then we'll reopen the bar. I'm always interested to know, what you're thinking about long-term and post-Instagram. All of you probably have at least 30 more years that you have to work, unless you're, were born with like generational wealth, in which case, congratulations. But if not, you've got 30 more years. Instagram's not going to be around for 30 more years. You're probably not going to be able to make money selling sponsored posts for 30 years. So what is the kind of long-term play, and how does what you're doing now fit into that? Maybe you think I'm wrong. Maybe you're like, Instagram's going to be around.
It's going to be here forever. What are you talking about?
True.
I mean, I don't have a great answer for that. I'm aware of Instagram not being around. I'm aware of needing to be multi-platform, and I'm constantly aware of like, what are my actual skill sets here? Like, why did some things stick on Instagram, and how can I leverage those things to the next opportunity? And I think that's one of the things that's really nice about having management is I can purely be a creative and I can explore different avenues, which I'm like constantly trying to do. I think we're at a really great moment here where I think all of us can say we're extremely lucky and privileged to get the opportunities that we have and to be paid to be on Instagram and to, have all the opportunities that presents. But I do think it's going away at some point, and I am aware of it. And I wouldn't say that I feel completely secure, but I also think I lean into the unpredictability of life, and I don't know what the fuck is on the horizon anyway. So I think just keeping that in my subconscious and trying to work towards something, and opportunities will keep arising and new things will keep coming, and we'll just navigate as those things do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because as an influencer, you get used to this like fluid, flexible life because you've got, having an audience is so valuable. And advertising, all advertising is you're just selling access to eyeballs, right? You've been fortunate enough to gather, tens of thousands of eyeballs, and brands are just interested in reaching those eyeballs through you. You're the gatekeeper. Vogue used to be the gatekeeper. Before that, TV was the gatekeeper, and then radio was the gatekeeper. So we're in this kind of just like big cycle, and advertising will just always go where attention is. And I've seen it like being being like Tumblr famous back in the day, and then Tumblr RIP, dying. Like if that following goes away, like I know you've got the podcast, but are you thinking about how can I, you don't have a blog though. Like, are you thinking about, I need to start trying to move these followers somewhere that if Instagram goes away, I can keep it, I hold on to them? Yeah. Because I've got like 130,000 followers on Tumblr. And if I went and posted, it wouldn't matter because they don't log in. So like all of a sudden that number doesn't matter, which is kind of crazy.
I think the thing that is the difference is I feel less pressure around trying to continue the momentum behind Instagram. I look at myself as an individual. I feel really lucky for Instagram at the moment, but I don't let it define where I'm going to go next. And so I'm really looking like if I can leverage like what I've built and what I have done, like amazing, but at the same point, like I'm not going to double down on it. I'm not going to put too much pressure on that, and I'm going to just let like me be able to accept whatever opportunities come my way, if that is on Instagram or not on Instagram. I mean, I'm aware of it, and I would love to continue. But at the same point, I think like there are days where I wake up where I'm like, is this worth it anyway? So Yeah, I mean, that's not a great answer, but it's in my subconscious. But
Big handsome energy right there. I love it. He's like, this is gonna work out. No, it's. I mean, I also don't know how old you are.
25.
Okay, that's nice too. You got your whole life ahead of you. Me, I'm, I see the light rapidly approaching, so I'm trying to make the most of it while I can. Vic, what about you?
I think it boils back down to the first question you asked me. It's all about purpose for me. Why am I doing this? Having 45,000 people follow me is great, but what for? Like, what is the bigger meaning behind this? And so, for me, again, it's to impact the lives of women, specifically women of color, whether that's on the internet, off the internet, through books that I've written, through events that I plan on throwing. And then again, I own a blog. I own my own little digital space. So if Instagram falls off the face of the earth tomorrow, I still have a space where I can write, where I can heal, where I can inspire. And I just see that, there's books, there's maybe short films, there's podcasts, there's everything in the future.
Yeah. I think one of the things I've seen from Tumblr, right, is having a following is opens so many doors, no matter which one you want to walk through, So if it's Drew, if you're well, I think I want to then be a photographer, that door is so much more open, having said hey, remember Instagram? I was able to build a following on that. That means something. Yeah. A lot of the kids that I came up with on Tumblr ended up getting traditional jobs, but traditional jobs they would have never been able to get because they were in finance and they built a menswear following and then went and worked at GQ, which they were been wanting to do, but they couldn't jump into that. So I think, even if you build a following and you don't make money on it and you're not doing sponsored posts, I know when we interview people, we look at their Instagram. I mean, it's important to us to see what they're doing there, and not to be oh, are they, drinking or posting photos of them doing a bunch of blow? I mean, that would be a red flag. But do you understand how to use this platform? And if you can build a following, even if it's 1,000, 2,000 people, that's more than most people can do. So no matter what, if it's doing events, if it's writing books, that following is going to help. What about you, Caitlyn?
Yeah, I think I agree with both of you guys. It's focusing on building a super strong community that wherever you go, they'll kind of be there. And I think it helps, obviously, having a blog that's something of your own, and giving value to them. Instagram, a lot of the times, is just posting pretty pictures and, really cool vacations or whatever. But I think giving value and showing, if it does go away, oh, shit, how do I wear this? You know what I mean? And they could easily know where to find it. So I feel like giving value in a bigger way is the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to open it up to some questions for y'all, and then they're not going to go anywhere, and we're not going to kick you guys out, and so you can grab them after. But any questions from the audience? Yeah.
Hi. So I'm a new follower to all three of you as of 30 minutes ago. But
Thank
since
you.
I don't know much about your backgrounds, I was just curious if you could speak to video and if you currently do video, especially Vic, I'm sure skincare, makeup, video is a big component of it, or if you have plans to explore video in the future.
I really like video. I feel like I started doing it a little while ago. That was it was very professional and really coolly edited, and I think it's now moving towards very off the cuff and unfiltered and real, and almost like your stories, but posting it on your feed to kind of show more of who you really are and be more relatable and that whole thing. So yeah.
Are you doing that consistently? Is it I know Crystal Bick, she does a little IGTV, she tries on a bunch of clothes, dances around or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
really
she does
cute.
that consistently. Is it something you're this is something I'm doing, or is it just when you feel like it?
I'm trying to be consistent with it. My goal was to post once a week, a video at least once a week. Sometimes it's twice a week, but minimum it's once a week, at least the past couple months.
What about you, Vic?
Same, trying to be consistent. When I do video, it is very unscripted, very very much like my story. It's just me talking to the camera. Not all pretty and frou-frou. I just, get on there and talk about skincare and answer whatever questions may come my way.
Important to note, we were in a client meeting and they were talking about IGTV, and everyone's like, oh, I'm thinking about leaving YouTube for IGTV. I'm getting so many more views on IGTV. And we looked into it. Tim, how many seconds do you have to watch an IGTV to get a view? It's like 4 or 5, 8,
Yeah.
3. It's 30 or 40 seconds for YouTube. So Instagram and Facebook are notorious. They got like an enormous, multi-million-dollar fine for inflating their views numbers. And Procter & Gamble, the biggest advertiser in the world, like a year and a half ago came out and they're just like, we are not running another ad with Facebook until they fix this, because they were counting a view as like a couple seconds, which as you roll through the feed, it plays a couple seconds. So they were like, oh my gosh, we're getting all these views, but they actually weren't. So are any of you doing YouTube, or are you just on IGTV and Instagram right now?
I have some YouTube videos. They're really bad, though.
So not focusing on it.
No.
But anyone out there for video, I think Instagram is great, but don't be drawn away too much by your IGTV views. And having talked to other influencers, I know like Marcel has gone, from One Dapper Street's gone like hard. Well, he goes hard on like everything he does, but into YouTube. And he was like stagnant on Instagram, but growing his YouTube helped him grow his Instagram for the first time in years. I know you're doing a podcast now. That's another thing. Like Grace Atwood, who we talk about on the show a bunch, her podcast is like restarted her Instagram growth for the first time in years. So I think, getting outside of the normal platforms, getting off of Instagram can strangely help your Instagram. And don't be afraid if you want to try video, I think, to go to YouTube and not just feel like you're stuck in this one platform, which, as we know, will go away. One more question? Sorry, guys, I just run out of my mouth. In the back with your tongue out. Yep, right there. Yep.
I don't want to be on Instagram forever. Like even if Instagram lasted forever, I don't want to do this forever. So I'm 30, almost 34. So I'm already putting things into play to get off of Instagram. But again, I run my own blog/website. I have an email list. I recently started a self-care platform for women of color. Sorry. So hosting events, again, expanding or expounding on that platform. And then writing books. I tell people all the time, before I'm an influencer or a blogger, I was a writer. That's what I love to do. I love to write and heal and impact women through words.
Write a book is a strong answer. I just wake up and write a book, I
go.
guess.
I mean, if it ended this evening, I think I have the most clout in the menswear space, so I would probably just jump to any styling connections, which I've done in the past. Yeah, that's what I would do. I think that's one of the benefits of having a blog, and sort of my own strategy of trying to be multi-platform is to have some insurance in those spaces. But if it ended at midnight, I'd probably take a day and then start styling some people.
You could have a day would be okay. I mean, that would be.
I have modeling.
That would be a crazy day,
Yeah.
if Okay, I mean, you have the blog.
Yeah. Blog, email list. I don't know, man. That's very daunting, but I would say the blog, the email list, and then also just trying to utilize my skills, which I think why people follow me, which is kind of outfit-based and maybe styling. I kind of have my own vintage shop that's on the side, so it's, I guess, something like that.
James,
I don't know.
what would you do?
What would I do? I mean, look, we're not dependent. Like, we're platform agnostic, right? So like we will follow eyeballs, and like I believe that no matter what happens with the platforms, the idea of individuals having an audience is completely changed media, but it's not going away. And so whatever is next, I mean, we talk to the TikTok team now. They don't have an API, but we are like first in line to get access to that API so we can start working on TikTok, because if that works better than Instagram, like, love you guys, bye. Because like what we do has nothing to do with Instagram. It's just that right now we do a lot of it on Instagram. I think for everyone out there is something we think about in the startup world is that like a big way where you will get like passed up for investment is if you have what they would call a single point of failure. So if one thing changes, your business no longer works. And most investors will not invest in a business that has a single point of failure, because what can go wrong does go wrong. And so you usually need a few kind of contingency plans. And I think for influencers, it's the same thing. Like if 98% of your revenue is coming through Instagram, you have a single point of failure. And if something changes dramatically, then it could be incredibly difficult for you to have the life you do. And I have a list that I keep that is like existential threats to Fohr. Everything that could happen to ruin our business and what I would do if it did happen, which one can like ease some of the anxiety of like, what would I do if Instagram went away tomorrow? Once you actually write down what you would do, you'd be like, oh, that's not great. I hope that doesn't happen, but like I would survive. If you don't have answers, I think it helps you to say like, okay, 6 months from now, I want 75% of my revenue to come through Instagram. I want to make sure if I have 5,000 followers on Instagram, I want 1,000 people on my newsletter list. I want 500 people a day coming to my blog that I haven't started yet. I want to have a podcast with 2,000 listeners. Whatever it is, you want to make sure that you don't have that single point of failure, because even if you're not thinking about it, it is this creeping anxiety, right? Of like, if this one thing happens, my life is over, which is not a great feeling. So on that note, I think we're going to drink. Let's give these guys a round of applause. Thank you so much. I know we didn't get a lot of time for questions, but again, they're going to stick around, form a line, and they will answer your questions. Thank you.